Blade Runner was released in 1982, directed by Ridley Scott, written by Hampton Fancher and David Peoples, and starred Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard, a Blade Runner living in Los Angeles in the year 2019. In this version of the future, robots known as replicants are designed to be as humanly possible and are used as slave labor on off-world colonies, but they have since turned violent and are outlawed completely, and Blade Runners are hired by the police to take them down and eliminate them. It's not called execution, it's called retirement. Blade Runner to me is honestly one of my most favorite films, I think, of all time. It is a movie that it benefits upon every single time I've seen it. I didn't love it the first time, and I don't think anyone really has. You need to really watch it a couple of times to truly crack it. Anyone who says to you that they watched it once and understood everything that was going on in it completely is either lying to you or they're a bit of a genius. There is just so much that has been poured into this movie so meticulously by the director, by the writers, by the cast, by the crew, by everyone working on it. Even though this movie was kind of troubling to shoot. There was a lot of rewrites, a lot of studio notes. People weren't really sure what this movie was going to be. It was not a success when it came out. Everyone kind of just went, all right, fine, that was a failure. Let's just move on from it and get over it. But Ridley Scott knew what the story was going to be. He knew how to make this movie. And since he went back, re-edited it, and what I consider the ultimate version of Blade Runner is the final cut. This is the most perfect way to watch this movie. It has everything that people have said is so great about Blade Runner, and it uses it to perfection. It perfects those little tiny things. It just makes this movie a more complete experience. This is just a simple review for me to get my opinions out there about this movie just before the sequel comes out, Blade Runner 2049, which I'm so excited for. So let's break it down. First off, what I love, I think, the most about this entire film is the world that it has created. From the opening sequence, which is still one of the most perfect opening sequences in the history of film, we get everything of what this world is meant to be. It is Los Angeles in the year 2019, and it is this massive industry cityscape. It is all filled with towers that are booming with fire, a symbol of how we've just built and built and built these massive city structures and never really thought about the effects that would have on our world. The sky is this sickly orange. At the center of it all is these massive 700-foot Mayan temple superstructures that sit and pervade the entire city out there. And yet all of this kind of desperate, dark, kind of disgusting landscape is presented in this quietly beautiful way. What we are watching is a film that knows that this is meant to be a dystopian world, a world that we don't want to see exist, but it presents it in this almost heavenly way because of the way that the whole scene has been scored and the way that it has been shot and the use of color, sound effects, metaphorical images which set up the greater themes for the entire movie. Everything that you want to love about Blade Runner is right there in the opening minutes. And that's so incredible to watch. And as the movie keeps going, the world gets larger because we get to see the ground level of everything. We get to see in pretty much every single frame of the outside world that this city is teeming with life of all different kinds. There is Chinese cultures out there, there are Mexican influences, there's Mayan influences, there's Egyptians, Arabic, there's all this stuff that is just collected together and is just being poured over by almost continuous rain, which is a complete rarity in Los Angeles. And every time I watch this movie, I notice something different about this city, about the background, about extras, about costume design, about lighting choices, about sound effects. There is just so many different things, so many crazy, imaginative, creative ideas that were just poured into the world construction of this film, and it all works perfectly. The way that Ridley Scott and his cinematographer Jordan Cronenweth shoot this movie is unparalleled because they want to explore what this world really looks like, but they don't just have some big overhead shot that swarms all through the city buildings. Instead, it always shoots it from the human perspective. It always shoots it from our character's point of view. We only see flying overhead shots when Rick Deckard is in a flying car and looking down below. We only see the street level when a character is on those streets. Sometimes we have a shot looking up at the massive balloons advertising off-world colonies, but we only see that shot because a character is looking in that way. It's a technique that has never been trumped. So many science fiction dystopian movies have tried to do the Blade Runner thing of creating this incredible teeming world, but they shoot it in this kind of boring, flat, unimaginative way. You don't get to explore it in the way that you need to. The way that Ridley Scott directs this movie, he wants to explore the themes, but he does it carefully. He only lets the characters give you their motivations at the right moments. In fact, most of the characters, we don't really know what they're feeling until maybe the last half of the entire movie. The rest of it is about subtlety. The rest of it is just about using these small little images, these glimpses of different things, and seeing what you can put together. This movie is a different experience for everyone. What I have going into it is that this is a neo-noir dystopian film. For me, it's not a science fiction film, because while we do have robots and flying cars, the rest of it is all pulling from dystopian ideas coming from writers like Philip K. Dick, who was the basis of this movie with his novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. This is a beautiful, beautiful film to look at, to enjoy, to pick apart, to analyze. The characters are mixed for me. Some of them I love, but the other ones are probably the weakest point of it. The way Harrison Ford plays Rick Deckard is oddly completely different from all of his other roles. When this movie came out, he was just known for playing Han Solo and Indiana Jones, these very manly, heroic, courageous guys who came in and most of the time saved the day. But Rick Deckard doesn't save the day. In fact, he barely gets out of this movie alive. I think it's amazing that he's even alive by the end of it. Anytime he's in danger, he can never save himself. He tries his darndest, but he always gets his ass handed to him. The only way that he makes it out alive is if his opponent just kind of sits down and dies, or if another character comes in and shoots the guy in the head. That's the only way he's able to get out of situations. The rest of the time, he's sitting in his apartment, or he's going out being this detective character, looking at situations in this more intellectual way. He barely uses his weapon, and when he does, he makes sure that he gets the job done, even though he kind of hates that job. I thought it was weird before when I watched this movie when Rick Deckard would eliminate a replicant and feel kind of sad about it. But I found that watching this movie again, there's something deeper going on there. The way that Harrison Ford plays this and the way that Deckard has been written is that he doesn't communicate with humans in any proper way. In fact, he communicates with them in these very cold, cynical ways. He just gets to the point and moves on with his life. But every time he communicates with a replicant, whether it be Rachel or Roy Batty, or even when he has a fight with Leon, he's actually talking to them like a human would talk to another human in kind, generous, intuitive ways. He wants to learn more about replicants, and he sees that because replicants have memories and because they have human feelings, or at least they're designed to replicate human feelings and emotions, he can actually connect with that because he sees their creation as something else than just a machine. Every time he kills them, he feels guilty about that because he sees them in a different way. Maybe that's just my interpretation of it, but I think that's what Harrison Ford was going for, and he makes it quite beautiful. There are some scenes where he's kind of crushing in his simplicity and in his dourness. He's a fantastic character, played wonderfully, and contemplating him is pretty much the standout of this movie, Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty. He's playing this crazy, wild villain, this complex character, this violent and impulsive replicant who actually has a heart beating underneath all of that. He gives one of the most beautiful monologues, I think, in the history of film, which is the Tears and Rain monologue, and everyone who's seen this movie knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's still perfect in every single way because of how Rutger Hauer plays this character. Beforehand, he was doing all these really weird, crazy things as he's just about to die, but then when he faces death, he lets go of his fears, he lets go of his craziness, all this attempts at trying to have more life are gone because he realizes what is coming for him and he just kind of lets go.
All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
It's a perfect scene that just explaining it doesn't do it justice. You have to see it for yourself. You have to see this movie because it means so much more than just being a science fiction movie or a dystopian movie or that weird movie with Harrison Ford and the robots. Whatever you've heard about this movie, it's more than that. There is so much deeper going on under it. There's so many other ideas. There's so many ambiguous themes. There's so much that you could pick apart and take your own interpretations with. And that's brilliant. That's the intention. You're meant to go into it and have a different experience. And I think Blade Runner does that pretty beautifully. The weakest part for me is those side characters, as I said before, the other replicant characters, and Sean Young playing Rachel. She was trying pretty hard, but yeah, she wasn't the best fit, and she has very little chemistry with Harrison Ford, which makes their romance subplot, which is meant to be this big undercurrent for a lot of the scenes and meant to make the ending feel really impactful, doesn't work. Kind of doesn't work because we never cared about their relationship. In the end, Blade Runner is a very important, impactful, meaningful film that has so much deeper going on within it. The world that it constructs, the cinematography by Jordan Cronenworth, the score by Vangelis, the production design, the effects, the costumes, the sound design, all of it is ultimately perfect. There are those few characters and those few acting moments that don't entirely work for me. The rest of this movie is so influential and oddly so elegant and beautiful. I'm so excited for Blade Runner 2049. I hope that it lives up to the heights that its predecessor has set up for the last 35 years. Blade Runner, to me, is a masterpiece. So Blade Runner, have you seen it? Please tell me what you think about it in the comments below. There are going to be videos linked down here or one over there. For more Mr. Movies, please press my little face right there. Thanks for watching.